Veronica is a beautiful and independent woman who finds joy in her role as a mistress. While soaking in the tub, she reflects on the secrets of being a great mistress, saying it's about making her lovers crave her more than she craves them and stepping up her game when the main wife loses interest. Surprisingly, Veronica lays down some ground rules for her lovers, like no accidental run-ins with their friends or dinners at spots frequented with their wives. Because who needs that kind of drama? She continues to list her mistress manifesto before glamming up for a date with Nathan. During their date, Nathan showers her with compliments and tells her about sealing a deal. Veronica raises her glass in celebration, but their happy moment is interrupted by Nathan's ringing phone, with his wife on the other end. Nathan hesitates to take the call, but Veronica advises him to take the call as he's not where his wife expects him to be. Nathan still argues that if he answers the call at the moment, then his wife will know he's where he's not supposed to be. But smart Veronica urges him to go outside and answer the call, and he does so. After a short conversation, Nathan returns and informs Veronica of a sudden need to leave, promising to reschedule their dinner date. He plants a kiss on Veronica and leaves. Later that evening, Veronica heads home and is greeted by a pizza delivery guy who can't help but admire her stunning appearance. Curious about her outfit at that hour, he asks her, prompting Veronica to reveal her evening ended earlier than expected. The delivery guy cheekily says her evening wouldn't have ended so soon if you were involved. He gets a playful brush off from Veronica, who jokingly reminds him of their age difference before sending him away. Inside, she settles with her pizza and tunes into a workout program. The following day at work, Veronica receives a call from a client named Margie, inquiring about her order. Veronica gives her a pickup time. Despite her colleague Trent's objections to the pickup time, Veronica stands her ground, much to Trent's disappointment. As they talk about the challenges of dealing with Margie, Veronica's bestie, Brandon, enters the store, eager to catch up with their gist. Veronica promises to tell him over lunch and grabs her bag. After a brief chat with Trent, she and Brandon leave the store. On the way, Brandon learns of Veronica's shortened date from the previous night, prompting her to confess a feeling of jealousy. Brandon asks if she has special feelings for Nathan, and she reveals she likes him as much as she likes every guy she goes out with. Brandon, however, informs her that he desires deeper connections from the men she goes out with. Their discussion digressed to their own relationship, with Veronica teasing about being the cause of Brandon's divorce, but Brandon firmly states that she didn't cause his divorce, but his marriage did, changing their topic of discussion. Brandon requests for Veronica's help in picking a gift for his grandnephew's upcoming birthday, and off they go to the gift store. Later, they return to Veronica's workplace where she gives Trent a plate of food, which he gratefully accepts. They plan a movie night, with Trent reminding Veronica about his show that evening. The atmosphere gets a bit awkward between them before Brandon bids Veronica goodbye. In the next scene, Veronica arrives at a beautiful mansion where she's warmly welcomed by Adam. He leads her into a room filled with books and begins to express his love for her. But Veronica reminds him of his marital status and her own relationship. Determined, Adam insists he'll keep asking her out until she says yes. But Veronica changes the conversation to packing up the books for the store. Back at the shop, as Veronica chats with Trent, Margie enters, exchanging pleasantries before purchasing a book for her grandson. She inquires about Veronica's marital status and offers some unsolicited advice, saying Veronica will find love when she least expects it, citing her own experience of meeting her husband on a train. Trent chimes in with his own train romance, but Margie snubs him, thanks Veronica, and exits the store. Veronica and Trent make fun of Margie's attitude, with Trent suggesting a dating profile for Veronica, which she declines, saying lies are rampant on such platforms. Trent then suggests Veronica gets into a relationship with Brandon, pointing out their shared history, but Veronica states her contentment with her current relationship state. Trent argues she's already in a relationship with Brandon, listing the activities they have shared. Veronica counters that Brandon has never shown romantic interest, and their conversation drifts to a flashback of Veronica and Brandon's intimate moment on his marital bed, which surprises Trent because Veronica avoids her lover's homes. After her visit to Brandon's house, Veronica accidentally left her earrings, so she asks Brandon to put them in a gift box to avoid causing suspicion from his wife. As they discuss, a delivery lady arrives with flowers for Veronica. Reading the note from Nathan, Veronica swiftly passes them to Trent, suggesting they'd be better enjoyed by Steve. When asked why she isn't enjoying them herself, Veronica explains they bring more problems than they solve. Later that night, Veronica heads out for a solo date, while Trent returns home to his partner, bringing the flowers along. Presenting them as a gift, Trent confesses they're actually a re-gift, leading to a conversation about Veronica and her suitor. Trent expresses his wish for Veronica to find the same happiness he shares with his partner, causing his husband to advise against meddling in Veronica's affairs. The following day, Veronica meets Nathan by the lakeside, where he reveals his decision not to go to Tokyo as planned due to his wife's job loss and pledges to stand by her during this challenging time. Veronica admits she'd prefer not to hear from him unless his marriage hits a rough patch and likens affairs to addictive substances before bidding him farewell with a kiss. Veronica returns to her workplace and organizes books on a shelf with Trent. He mentions Steve taught him a new recipe the previous night, catching Veronica's interest. However, their conversation is interrupted when Adam enters the store, handing her a cup of coffee. She gives him an envelope, reminding him of a promise, which he asks her to remind him about. Veronica remarks that it's not important to him if she has to remind him. Surprisingly, Adam concedes, reminding her of their meeting over a year ago and his own unreasonable behavior. He decides not to bother her anymore, and they both agree to see each other in the evening, as previously arranged. Trent chimes in, just to hasten their discussion, prompting them to conclude their conversation, after which Adam leaves the bookstore. Trent approaches Veronica and reminds her of her recent breakup and advises her to take time to heal. Veronica argues that her relationships have expiration dates and reminds him once more that she's not looking for a relationship as she's not ready for the drama that comes with it. Trent seals his lips and runs off to continue his work. At night, Veronica waits for Adam in a bar. She chats with Brandon via text, keeping him updated on Adam's lateness. When Adam finally arrives, he compliments Veronica and apologizes for his lateness. As they discuss, he inquires about what changed her mind, but Veronica quickly responds to a text from Brandon and resumes their discussion. Adam asks if she's okay with the fact that she's not his, to which Veronica reassures him, stating she knows her place and is comfortable with it, and points her presence at the bar with him as evidence. They raise a toast, and Veronica queries if he's seeing anyone else. Adam confirms he's only seeing his wife and confesses his strong feelings for Veronica since they first met. He expresses his desire to be with her, despite his marital status. Veronica reciprocates by kissing him passionately. After their date, they retire to a room where they share an intimate moment. In the morning, Veronica and Trent share breakfast together. Trent notices Veronica's unusual silence, and she reveals that she just wishes someone knows how she really wants to be. Trent encourages her to open up about her wishes, but she hesitates, calling them selfish first. Eventually, she confesses her desire for a partner who prioritizes her needs as much as she prioritizes his own. Trent lightens the mood by joking about Adam filling their bookshelf, suggesting Veronica needs someone like Brandon, who can divide his attention. Veronica reminds Trent of her tendency to push away men once she's in a relationship, and expresses she doesn't want to hurt Brandon in the same way. Trent counters by saying Veronica isn't as good at pushing people away as she thinks, mentioning Brandon's continued presence in her life as evidence. Veronica defends herself, claiming she has attempted to distance herself from Brandon, but she has grown to cherish their friendship. Trent remarks they're back to where they started, and they resume their meal. Later, Veronica and Brandon embark on a trip. They arrive at their destination and engage in a lot of fun activities. Afterwards, Brandon drives to a location where there's an abundance of butterflies, as Veronica requested to see butterflies when they were on the road. Veronica is excited as they explore the environment while Brandon takes pictures of her. In the night, the duo lodges in a hotel and Veronica suggests they order something to eat and then watch a movie, which Brandon quickly agrees to. Brandon suggests they order pizza, but Veronica objects, saying she's eaten pizza a lot lately. Brandon goes out and returns with a lot of snacks. He attributes their inability to get reasonable food to Veronica's request to see butterflies. As Veronica tries to open one of the snacks, he requests to ask her a question. He goes on to ask what she sees in the kind of guys she goes out with since he gets the VIP treatment and fancy night outs, and she tells him that they fit into her schedule and they don't ask questions. When asked if that's enough for her, she reveals it has been enough for her so far. She explains that she likes her independence and likes deciding what to do and enjoys having the freedom of not being tied down. She also says that the honest relationships she's had was when she's a mistress. Brandon questions her not wanting emotional intimacy and tries to make her see reasons why she should be in a relationship, but Veronica's mind is made up, and all she prefers is being a mistress. Veronica drifts to Brandon's divorce, asking why he never told her any story about his divorce. Her question prompts Brandon to tell his story, revealing that he met his wife in photography school, but he got a job after they both struggled to find one, while his wife couldn't find her voice. Soon, she started hating photography and him as well. which led to their divorce. He reveals that he didn't tell her the story because, despite not being the cause of his divorce, she was the symptom of his failed marriage. He changes the topic, and they begin to watch a movie which they sleep off while watching. The next morning, Veronica wakes up to Brandon's phone ringing. She checks the caller and sees a loved-up photo of Brandon and a lady. Brandon walks into the room and hands her a cup of coffee, and she informs him that he missed a call. Later, as they leave the hotel room to return to their base, Veronica confronts Brandon about the woman, Kristen, who called him earlier, questioning why he hadn't mentioned her before. Brandon describes Kristen as an acquaintance, but Veronica senses there might be more to their relationship. She persuades him to tell her about Kristen, mentioning she saw a photo of them kissing. Brandon queries if she went through his phone, but Veronica clarifies that the ringing phone woke her, and the picture surprised her. Brandon feels Veronica's reaction is excessive, but she argues that waking up to such a picture in a bed she shared with him is extreme. Brandon corrects her, explaining they fell asleep while watching a movie, not sharing a bed. Veronica puts on her earpiece, requests to be taken home, and Brandon drives off. Brandon returns home to find Kristen cooking in the kitchen. He greets her with a kiss and explains his delay as being due to traffic. He notices a present and discovers it's a birthday gift for his grandnephew from Kristen. As Kristen finishes cooking, she asks Brandon to light the candles. Meanwhile, Veronica vents to Adam about Brandon's 6-month relationship with Kristen without informing her. Adam shows lack of interest in Veronica's concerns and gestures for her to join him. He suggests she spend the night with him since his wife is away on business, but Veronica declines. She then inquires about a rare book, which Adam acknowledges knowing how to find, but warns it will be costly and difficult to get. He jokingly proposes to her spending the night with him in exchange for the book, but Veronica declines, and they both laugh. The next day, Veronica is at her workplace and notices a man struggling to find a book. She offers her assistance, and he explains he's searching for a book about dating after divorce. Veronica advises him that reading won't solve his problems. Surprisingly, he asks for her opinion on what she seeks in a partner, but she avoids a direct answer. They begin to get along, but suddenly, Brandon enters the store, and Trent hurriedly approaches Veronica, requesting to attend to the man she's talking with. Veronica is surprised, expecting Trent to be supportive, but he informs her the man is gay, which she finds hard to believe. Trent urges her to speak with Brandon, and she complies. Approaching Brandon, he confronts her for ignoring his calls, which she admits to doing deliberately. Brandon acknowledges her anger and asks the reason behind it. Veronica reveals that she feels deceived and kept in the dark by Brandon, who defends himself by stating he only didn't mention Kristen and didn't lie. Their argument escalates, and Veronica escorts him out of the store. Trent intervenes, saying Brandon didn't lie, but Veronica refuses to accept it. He reminds her that Brandon owes her nothing, leading Veronica to explode, insisting Brandon owes her respect. She gives her thoughts to Trent before storming off. In the subsequent scene, Jessica visits Trent and her husband, Steve. Steve serves her food, and they begin to make jokes. Trent brings up the issue of Veronica not talking with Brandon, prompting Steve to ask about Brandon's crime, but Trent says he didn't do anything wrong. Steve turns to Veronica for an answer, but surprisingly, she asks a question which leaves the couple analyzing the question. Trent still defends Brandon, saying it's not a lie if no one said anything, while Steve explains that Brandon might have avoided saying anything to her in order not to hurt her feelings. But Veronica insists that it doesn't matter how she feels since they're very close friends. She further states that Brandon's action made him unlovable in her eyes. Steve still seems lost with the whole story, so Trent offers an explanation. Steve then concludes that Brandon had feelings for Veronica. However, Veronica explains that Brandon has been single for 5 years and hasn't made any romantic move towards her. Steve chimes in, saying that everyone knows they have feelings for each other. He thinks maybe Brandon didn't tell her about the girl because he knew it will affect her. But Jessica still insists that she would have been fine if he told her, because she wants him to be happy. Steve then asks why she's ignoring his calls instead of celebrating with him, but she can't answer his question. Steve offers to do a survey and starts by asking Veronica if she thinks about Brandon when she's not with him, which she confirms, and also reveals she thinks about Trent too. The couple ask her a couple more questions, testing her knowledge about Brandon, and she answers all, perfectly leading Steve to advise her to stop pushing Brandon away. Veronica, on her way home, calls Brandon and requests to stop by his house so they can talk, and he agrees. She stops by his house, and they grab a wine before Veronica apologizes for the way she reacted when she discovered that Brandon is in a relationship. She reveals she has something to tell him, but hesitates before spilling that her reaction was out of jealousy. She asks Brandon to help her stop feeling the way she feels about him, as it's not right. Brandon asks her what feelings she's talking about, and she says the feelings that make her want to kiss him when she looks at him sometimes. They stare at each other in silence before Brandon voices that he's trying to understand why she needs those feelings to disappear. She says because they are not right or fair for her to have them. Veronica states that she's afraid of losing when Brandon asks her what she's afraid of. Brandon thinks she means she's afraid of losing him, but they're interrupted when Kristen enters the house. She walks into the kitchen searching for her phone and sees Veronica with Brandon. Brandon introduces the ladies to each other, and they greet each other before Kristen hurries out with her phone. Veronica tries to leave, but Brandon stops her, questioning her recent attitude towards him, since she says she has feelings for him. Veronica argues that she doesn't want to have such feelings for anyone, let alone him, and then to have his girlfriend thrust in his face ruins everything. Brandon continues to question Veronica's feelings and suddenly reaches for her face. He pulls her closer, and they begin to kiss passionately, with Veronica asking him to go down on her. They get intimate in the kitchen. Afterwards, Veronica gets dressed and leaves Brandon's house. The following day, while at the bookstore nearing closing time, Veronica notices Brandon hasn't called. As she works, Trent informs her of Brandon's call on another line. She answers, and Brandon explains his busy day, suggesting they talk later, to which Veronica agrees before he ends the call. Later that night, the pizza delivery arrives, and she enjoys it with wine while watching a movie. Brandon calls to apologize for missing their afternoon meeting and asks about Trent's upcoming comedy show before hanging up. On the day of Trent's show, he takes the stage, cracking jokes that cause laughter amongst the audience numerous times before concluding the performance. Afterward, Trent, Veronica, and Steve sit together with Brandon, discussing the just-concluded comedy show. Brandon apologizes for Kristen's absence, promising to make it up to Trent in his next show. While Veronica steps away to get wine, Trent asks Brandon if he knows where Veronica gets her haircut, to which he says no. Sensing Veronica might need assistance in the kitchen, Brandon offers his help. Later, Veronica and Brandon leave, and during the ride home, Brandon notices Veronica's cold attitude and questions her, but she says nothing is wrong. When they reach the parking lot, she confesses she can't be in a relationship with Brandon, as she feels disrespected by his actions. Brandon disagrees, pointing out their fun time together, but Veronica remains unconvinced, expressing her disappointment in how Brandon treated her like a mistress without proper respect. Brandon responds with his perspective, leading to Veronica leaving the car in anger, both agreeing to end whatever relationship they had. Following Veronica and Brandon's heated argument, they focus on their personal lives, with each person going about different activities without involving the other. Afterwards, Trent hosts another comedy show, and at the end of the show, Veronica meets Brandon walking into the venue and asks why he's at the show. Brandon reveals he got a message about the show and asks that they talk, as he doesn't like how things ended between them. He explains that he's in a relationship and also has Veronica by his side, and it felt right, and he believes it felt right for Veronica too. He takes her inside the hall and tries to convince her to get into a relationship with him, but Veronica is finding it difficult to see reasons with him. He reminds her of when his father was sick, and she really helped him, and he reveals that was when he fell in love with her. Veronica states that she's so invested in them that she can't walk away, and she's afraid of letting Brandon down as she doesn't know how to have such a relationship. Brandon advises her to let her guard down and allow him to love her, but she confirms that she did, and everything changed. When Veronica asks where they're headed in their current relationship, Brandon suggests breaking up with Kristen, but Veronica quickly objects. Brandon rants that it's not proper to be sharing a bed with Kristen and be confessing his love for Veronica. Veronica professes her love to Brandon, but she bothers about their lives changing, and she suggests bringing sex into the equation. She states that she only wants it to be with him. Brandon understands that Veronica wants to be his mistress and becomes speechless. Veronica urges him to say something, and he asks if she truly loves him, and she confirms and adds that she can't bear not having him in her life. Veronica explains her reason for choosing friendship over relationship, but Brandon makes it clear that he can't be with someone who is scared of him and can't take the risk of being in a relationship with him. Veronica expresses concern about Brandon, asking her to be in a relationship with him despite knowing his past. Brandon, on his own part, tells her that he doesn't want the type of relationship she's used to having, as it's not enough. The two keep explaining themselves, and in the process, Veronica breaks down in tears, but Brandon kisses her and continues to profess his love for her. He tells her that he's willing to make their relationship work. They share a tender moment until Trent enters, disrupting the intimacy, prompting them to embrace each other. In the morning, Brandon visits the bookstore, delivering copies of his books to Veronica as requested. He leans in for a kiss, and she reminds him that it's daytime. Despite her reminder, he persists in leaning in for a kiss, which she eventually reciprocates. Veronica then reminds him of their lunch plans, to which Brandon explains he's at the bookstore to treat Trent to lunch for selling 3 copies of his books. Veronica requests a doggy bag, and they part ways. In the following scene, Brandon and Trent have lunch at a restaurant, where Trent expresses his disappointment in Brandon's behavior at the bookstore, pointing out that they don't have plans for a lunch date. Brandon confides in Trent, revealing his breakup with Kristen because of his feelings for Veronica and his reluctance to share it with her immediately, due to her unique nature. Trent reacts with excitement and immediately shares the news with Steve via text. Returning to the store, Brandon gives Veronica the pizza he bought for her, and Trent briefly tells her about their lunch date before leaving them alone. Brandon arranges a dinner and movie date with Veronica before leaving the bookstore. At night, Veronica and Brandon are snuggled up in bed when Brandon's phone receives a message. Veronica assists him in getting the phone, and he reads a message from Kristen informing him that she has taken the remainder of her belongings from his house. Putting the phone aside, Brandon directs his attention back to Veronica, and they continue to enjoy their romantic moment.